Hi, Haz.
Hey.
So, this episode is part of Home, a podcast built around nervous system regulation, emotional sense making, and helping people feel more oriented in a demanding world. Home isn't instructional, clinical, or performative. It's reflective, human, and spacious. People listen while walking, resting, or quietly trying to make sense of themselves. The aim isn't to teach or convince, but to help things feel more understandable. Most episodes are short 5-minute resets. Once a month, there's a longer conversation. This is one of those. The audience is made up of thoughtful, high functioning adults who carry a lot, often quietly. They're not looking for techniques, they're looking for clarity that reduces shame. This conversation is about slowing into strength, how one person has adapted what her body has taught her, and how much begins to make sense when we really start listening. I'm joined by Hazel Childs, authorpreneur and MS warrior, someone I know from my media days, whose life took a very different turn when she was diagnosed with MS. What stayed with me isn't the diagnosis, it's how she's learned to live alongside it, not by pushing harder, but by listening more closely. This conversation about the body, the signals we override, and what happens when we finally stop doing that.
Right.
People often hear the word MS and think they understand the story. What they don't see is what it asks of you internally. I'd love to start there. What has it asked of you as a person? And maybe a little bit about what MS stands for and what it is, has, if that's a good starting point.
Okay, that's quite a big question for me, actually. So I just to touch on it a little bit. So when I first got diagnosed in 2019, age 29, I had a neurologist at the time, and we kind of had an MRI, and my neurologist had actually told me that he thought everything was normal. He didn't think it was anything. So I went into the room that day. My mum came with me. And there was actually another lady who was kind of covering because he was on sick. And she basically said, "Oh, so I take it you know." And I said, "No, what?" And she said, "Well, you've got MS." So I kind of was like, not quite sure I know what that is, but okay, fair enough. And basically, she did explain a little bit, and I came out of the room as a complete zombie for the next 6 to 7 months. Definitely, like I was so shocked. And then I kind of did a bit of research. My sister actually did a bit of research for me, and she was kind of firing things at me from websites that she'd read, and it was just kind of going in one ear, out the other. So I did, yeah, but anyway, I did kind of the general thing I got about it. So MS, multiple sclerosis, is basically something to do with the nerves, and my immune system works slightly differently to yours, for example, to most people's, in that it kind of attacks the myelin, sorry, which is the coating to the nerve. So it, yeah, so the coating to my nerves gets attacked, so it kind of, you know, isn't protected
Yeah.
as it's meant to, and that could affect your mobility over time. For different people, it looks completely different.
Yeah.
It may affect me cognitively, in which case I have seen slightly memory, it could affect that. There are several things actually, and it can be quite scary at times. Kind of the more you open yourself up to that, the more you think, oh my gosh, like actually this is now my life. How am I going to cope with that? Um, yeah. So it was like a big, yeah, it was like almost I didn't want to find out more at first. And yeah, just it's a massive life change. And then you think, how am I going to adapt my life, or how am I even going to cope? How do my family feel? Maybe which to this day I don't even think I know truly how they felt. But yeah, so the MS, it's a disability. So I'm disabled now. And for me, that is that's like a label on you, and coming to terms with that has taken a good 5 years or so for me to accept that. Um, yeah. And so MS is now just part of me, and actually it doesn't hold me back. It I think it's how your outlook in life is generally. It's taken a lot of healing. I've had to heal from kind of past trauma a little bit and things like that. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. Yeah.
Just hearing about that, sort of the start of that journey from where you found out, and of course going through what you went through in that room,
Mm.
hearing that, and your sister doing some research, and you not being able to hear about the diagnosis. What changed over the years, moving forward, sort of over the next few years? What kind of shifted for you? How did you help yourself create that shift? I heard you mention that you worked through some past trauma. That sounds like part of it. I wonder about.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for me, it was quite, I mean, I get goose pimples thinking about it now. And so actually for me, what happened was 6 months into that, um, I got diagnosed with borderline bipolar, which to me was completely alien. Like I had no idea. Um, but it was basically I saw a psychiatrist and he asked me like 50 questions, and then his conclusion was that I now had borderline bipolar. And I was like, wow, how could someone just ask me questions about my life and come to that decision? Um and yeah, so that was actually for me, mentally I've struggled more than I have physically. And for different people, that can be different. But I think how I found out, or how they told me, um, my childhood was great. Everything was. I'm actually a triplet, so that's probably another thing. I always compare myself to them, and we like, why me, why have I got this and they haven't? Why am I now going to struggle potentially in my life? And they're not, they're quite successful in their careers and stuff, and that's been something that's been difficult for me to sit with. But I think in the most recent years, well, probably in the last year only, to be honest, I've decided, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit at home and feel sorry for myself for the rest of my life and, kind of not believe in myself at all, which actually, last year I was completely on the floor with my kind of self-worth and things like that. I think from a past relationship that I was in, so that had really kind of worn me down. And I just kind of decided that actually, I need to kind of grab life a little bit. I need to kind of try to eliminate as much stress as I can from my life, because it wasn't great, for the body, and it can make your symptoms worse, and, it can make it harder at work and things like that. And actually, to this day, I have minimal stress in my life because I no longer welcome stuff that is potentially gonna impact me in a negative way. And that could be choosing what friends I invite into my life, or what kind of work I do. And at the moment I actually do voluntary work at the moment. And kind of the sense of, you feel like you've really got a purpose. And, I work in a charity shop, and I'm gonna start doing something soon on with young women with mental health problems. And I think that will be something powerful. But for me, it's been a real kind of thing for my mind as well, to give myself a purpose, to give me something to focus towards.
Yeah.
And now with the book, I've I've really plunged my energy into that. And it's something positive, and I can really see, like, the future doesn't have to be, I don't have to be living in this dark tunnel anymore. That I can't see the light, and it feels great to be out the other side.
Is that one of the reasons you moved down to Cornwall as well, just per chance?
Yeah, so I moved to Cornwall, yeah, because basically I kind of found myself, like, when my mum would force me to leave the house, in the early stages. I might go and walk the dog with her or something, which I didn't really want to leave the house. I didn't want anyone to see me. And then I thought, well, actually, I might bump into old school friends that I know. And is someone going to be able to tell that I've got MS just by looking at me? Maybe they think my balance is off, or I'm tripping a bit, or something like that. I was so conscious. And I thought, actually, I don't want to be around people that I know anymore. So I decided to leave my career in radio, which was a massive thing, because, that was my dream. Um, and I feel like I fulfilled it to an extent. Um, and yeah, I picked up my life and moved here to Cornwall. Didn't know anyone. I met some amazing friends. I worked in care for a couple of years. That's totally different. But I found, yeah, I was kind of burning myself out sometimes. And I think I really realized that actually I need to look after myself, and you know do what feeds me, you know and
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Mm,
think that's also a really good reminder for a lot of listeners that we have in Singapore. We're in a big city, very fast paced, uh, driven by work constantly,
yeah.
and it's like
Mm,
it's really the rat race here. So, and I have a friend in who often holidays in Cornwall, and just seeing her Facebook posts, just a different pace of life in certain places. I was
yeah.
just thinking then as well when you mentioned London, and just going back to sort of the media radio lifestyle. I just wonder how you relate to pressure and pace now versus then.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different. Like, I'm not working to, like, I don't have a paid job at the moment. So I literally do jobs I enjoy for the satisfaction just of being there and helping people, which is actually a really nice feeling. Um, but yeah, God, I mean, 10 years ago when I was busy, running around, loving being in radio, in the radio world, meeting people, interviewing people, driving the desk in, at the station or whatever it was. Yeah, I never would have thought that my life would be like this now. And it is slower, and some days I might not really see anyone. And actually, you know what? I'm okay with that. Like, I speak to my friend on FaceTime maybe, or I might put some music on and really just be me and, take some time to think about stuff and sometimes reflect on the past a bit. And yeah, I think it's like sometimes I shock myself to think how far I've come, and yeah, it's difficult. And those two worlds, yeah, it seems like a completely different life to what I had back then to what I see now. Yeah. So yeah, it's different, and I'm not, I think at first I did get quite sad about it, and I thought, actually, why can't I do what I used to do anymore? Not only because the opportunities aren't really in Cornwall to do that anymore, but also I, there are slight restrictions, that is difficult for me to even come to terms with, because actually I just want to be normal. I want to be able to do stuff that other people are doing, but sometimes I've got to take a step back and think, actually, is that going to benefit me, or is that going to help me stay calm or completely let things erupt, And for me, yeah, I've just got to look at stuff differently now. Mm.
I think anyone and everyone can learn from what you're saying about changing the pace
Yeah, yeah.
and taking a step back and doing sort of a inventory of ourselves, of our past, of our life, and so I think that that's one of the reasons as well, has that I thought this was really important for some of the people that I work with, is because it's literally about that reset, and
Mm.
people often hear, listen to your body all the time,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
it's very vague, and what does that actually mean?
Mm. Right, yeah.
Hearing from you, what does it actually look like in real life? Sometimes
Yeah.
it's changing 1% of something in your life, and sometimes it's changing everything.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me, it's been kind of being able to actually recognize that it's okay not to want the same thing that you did want back then. It's
Yeah.
okay to see things differently. It's okay to just sit in your feelings sometimes and think, actually, I'm feeling quite sad. But I'm just gonna be sad, and that's okay. But then also, like, the joys in life, they can change. Like, I mean, for example, this is a silly example, but for me, the other day I hoovered the stairs, and that's like something that I've avoided for years, because I have a cleaner, actually. So I always used to just let her do it, because for me, I have to take it step by step. I have to lean against the wall to get my balance right. It's just a really difficult task.
Yeah.
And I did it, and the sense of achievement that I had, I was just like, wow, it's the little wins. And I'm so happy with myself.
Brilliant.
And I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
think it's just step by step and, realizing that you can be happy and it just has to flow, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That just made me think as well. I wonder what parts of you had learned to soften and what parts have become stronger. And
Yeah.
has this kind of changed how you now, well, I think this goes back to what you just said about vacuuming the stairs, how it's kind of changed and defined success for you in that way.
Yeah, yeah, massively actually. And I think I think back to things a lot of the time because I get a lot of time to kind of think about things on my own and yeah, I just think, how things have changed so much and it's the little things and I try and twist everything into a positive. So it could be something that's really happened, like something bad that's happened to your day. And I think, well, actually, maybe that did benefit them, or maybe they weren't having such a good day because they've just shouted at you because you cut them up on the road or something like that. But yeah, and I think the way I see things is what's the bigger picture? What is happening in someone else's life, or maybe things could always be worse. And I think for me, having MS is something that I just have to live with. And it doesn't have to be something that's going to hold you back. It's just a different life to one that you anticipated, And I think, recently I might do a bit of breathing. I might listen to some calming music, which I've been doing quite a lot lately. I go to yoga 3 times a week, which I love. And yeah, I think it's just like loving. I think I've learnt to love myself. And that's been a real challenge for me. I think the place where I was. And yeah, it's just really good, like, to be able to think, actually, this is not unachievable for me. I can still have dreams like other people. It might just look
Yeah.
differently how I'm going to achieve that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
And that, just touching on that piece that you said has about learning to see the positive in everything. I love that. That can't have been easy though to get there. And like you mentioned, that it
Yeah.
also comes with grief and allowing yourself to
Yeah.
experience grief, because rather than
Mm.
skipping the grief process, the
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
and
definitely.
so forth. And I just wonder how that has sort of that part of it, and also how that progressed into you writing your memoir or your book about this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, I think so the first maybe even 6 years, since my diagnosis, everything was about me. So I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I won't have kids one day, or, what man's gonna want me? Or maybe I don't know. Maybe I won't be able to climb Kilimanjaro or whatever, whatever I thought might be possible. And my sisters would kind of talk to me, and I would find it really difficult to be happy for them. So one of my sisters got married, and I just a couple of years ago, and I found it really difficult to, be happy for her because I thought, well, actually, that should be me. Or why, maybe I'll never find that happiness or something. And I think little things like that have just made me think that I need to work on myself, and I have. And then this book opportunity came up in November last year. And I kind of talked to a publishing company, and they'd basically had my idea, which actually, when I first got diagnosed, I was super low. And then when I kind of came out of that, I thought, you know what? I'm going to sign up to run the marathon. I'm going to start writing a book. And I did. And I kind of just set the chapters out, and that's about as far as it got. But, I never ran the marathon in the end. But, things change. So yeah, and then this opportunity came up to write a book now. And I thought, wow, my journey is actually, someone might want to hear my story. Not just my story, but also when I was in that really low period, that I literally couldn't see any way out, if I had had someone to tell me things, or even the chance to read a book like that, which I didn't have. And I thought, now I've got the opportunity to share that with someone else and show them that there is a bit of hope. And, it might take, it might take a year, it might take 2 years, it might even take over 5 years. It could be anything really. But I think, my intention is that it's going to be a powerful way to kind of speak to people with a diagnosis of MS. And, it's a chance for them to be heard. It's a chance for them to have someone to relate with. Because I know for me personally, it's been, my family have been there for me. But they, at the end of the day, they don't know what it's like to live as me. They don't, I can tell them kind of what I'm struggling with. And especially with the bipolar thing, it was very difficult to have a relationship with them, because I was either too much or I was crying like every day. And I think I wasn't, they, they didn't enjoy my company all the time. Sometimes I would maybe go to my mum's house and just sit there for like 4 hours, and that was enough for me to just be in her company. But I think, so it's definitely, I'm gonna touch on the kind of mental health side of important. I don't know why that's happening, but never mind.
It's okay.
Okay, yeah. So for me, the opportunity to write a book now is a chance to kind of reach out to people, give them a chance to relate and be heard by myself, or, even just told that it's okay. You can sit in a room and stare at the wall for the majority of the day. That's probably what I did for months on end. And sometimes that's kind of what you've got to do to get out the other side. And I think, yeah, if someone can read that, it's hopefully going to be a powerful thing to read. Upsetting at times, because like one chapter's on trauma, partly what I've been through, but also I thought it's quite important to mention that, because a lot of people would be able to relate to certain things, whether they've got MS or not. Just in general. And I think it's something that people don't necessarily talk about so much. So yeah, I'm just hoping that, my book, when it comes out, hopefully kind of the beginning of next year, maybe. Yeah, I just hope that it will kind of provide some comfort to some people.
Yeah, and I can hear so much of your story that, like you mentioned, that that could really help so many people with MS. And I think you call yourself an MS warrior, is that right? And and also, but also anybody else, because I don't think we like you mentioned, we talk about this enough, and it's trauma, but it's also chronic stress, and it's also lifestyle shifts, that are so key in this conversation, that I think so many people could really resonate with your book, and how to learn to just take a step back and realize that success, and even, working ourselves to the extreme, is not always going to be the right option for us.
Yeah, it's not. And it's strange. Yeah, I mean, anyone with a neurological condition, it could be of benefit too. But yeah, no, I think you're definitely right. I think anyone, you know, that wants to maybe create that mindset of just their life calming down a bit and them kind of seeing it for what it is. And, sometimes you need to take a step back from your busy lifestyle and just think, actually, what matters to me anymore? What's going to make me happy? What's going to provide any kind of thing to fill my cup? Because I think if you don't give it to yourself, who else is going to? You know? Hmm.
Wonderful line. So, if someone was listening and is still pushing through, ignoring the signals, struggling with guilt of taking it slow,
Yeah.
what if, they've got fears, or they've got anxieties around what their environment, or what's happening around them, or the things that they're not able to control? What would you want them to hear? Not sort of like as advice, but as truth from your experience as.
Yeah. Okay. That's quite a deep question, but I think, what would they want to hear? Um, I would say that, sometimes I think give yourself time and really try to prioritize what you want to do. And if it's going for a walk, why not go by yourself? Why not get the headspace? Why not run a bath and listen to your favorite podcast while in the bath, which actually is one of my favorite things to do. Yeah, so for me, my restless legs is 24/7. So I might have 2 baths a day, sometimes 3. But I think for people to realize what really makes them happy, what opportunities there might be. And you might, you might think, oh my gosh, they're never going to want me there, or they're never going to value me for who I am. I know when I first stepped foot in the charity shop over a year ago, it was so daunting. I didn't want to be there, but I knew that I had to push myself a bit. And now, looking back, I've been there over a year, and it's a great thing that I did for myself, and it's really helped me. And they're great there, like, great people. And I think also, for me, a massive thing has been my friends. I think the people that you rely on, or can talk to about stuff, is sometimes you're not being selfish. Thinking about yourself and putting yourself first is not necessarily something that you do when you retire, for example. I'm 36. Like, I never thought I would be doing this right now. But at the end of the day, just I think for people to know that it's okay to just sit, to just be, and to just decide what you need and what makes you happy, and try not to kind of let other stuff influence that so much.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
and I think try and stay focused on you, and it might be half an hour a day, it might be 10 minutes a day, but just, yeah, give yourself that love that you deserve. Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Powerful. Very powerful. Thank you, Haz. And you just said something that stood out to me as well about pushing yourself to go to the
Mm,
charity shop. I just wanted to
yeah.
go back to that part.
Mhm.
How did you know just how much to push yourself? How did you learn?
Hmm, I think so my mum volunteers in a charity shop as well, and she'd kind of said to me, "I think it would be really good for you to go and do that." And I thought, well, actually, I don't wanna do something just because someone else is telling me to. But, and also years ago when I was working, I thought, "I'm never gonna volunteer my time just willy-nilly and do something." But for sometimes I used to walk 20 minutes to get there and then walk 20 minutes to come home after. And it's just the interaction with people and, people that come in the shop. Um, I used to work with adults with learning disabilities for a couple of years. And for me, that gave me a lot of patience. And I realized that I was quite a compassionate kind of person that was quite caring for others. And I think when you're in that environment, you just, even if you're just there, you might not be completely focused, you might not be that present, but just step by step, little bit by little bit, pushing yourself to get out your comfort zone a little bit
Yeah.
is it can only go up from there, I think. So yeah, even if it's once a week, once a week you go and do that and oh yeah, Thursday's my day. I'm gonna go and do that today. I think it's also a mind thing and you think, oh, I've gotta go and do that today. And yeah, just I mean, it's easy to mope around, but then just you only live once at the end of the day, so just try and I don't know, try and work just a little bit each day, maybe, and I just really hope that gives people hope because I know it's so difficult when
Yeah.
you're in such a dark place to
Yeah.
think of that, and you just think it's not even possible at all, but it is possible. Yeah.
But even
Mm.
just hearing earlier, has about spending 4 hours, like, sat with your mom and not speaking and just being in her
Yeah.
presence. I think when family and friends can do that for us,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, when people that we're connected with, whether it's a neighbor or when somebody can be that presence for us, that in itself is so healing. And
Mm.
just before
Yeah.
we just before we wrap up as well, Has, I wonder that, based on what you shared about this huge reset that you've had to go
Mm.
through, I wonder what you might say to those out there. And there are many people out there who feel that they don't have the time. They don't have the time to take care of themselves. They don't have the time to put themselves first. They don't have
Yeah.
time to care and love themselves.
Mhm.
What might
Yeah.
you say to these people?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I don't have kids, so, for me, I don't have that many responsibilities, so I can take the time for myself, but I think for those people that do, and don't get me wrong, I've got a friend who's my best friend actually. She's a single mum to two. She works full time. she's constantly running around, and it's so difficult, to even pin her down for 10 minutes, really, some days. But yeah, I'd just say, like, maybe even you could put on some music with your children, and they could do that with you. Or, my two cats are my world. They're my best friends. They're my number one supporters, like, all the time. And, I think, yeah, time is, I just don't want people to kind of look back and think, I wish I'd given myself a bit of a break then. And I think even if when you wake up in the morning, if you've got time, even while you're in the shower or something, just give yourself, or maybe you're walking to work, for example, stick on a podcast, stick on some. I like to listen to worship music. So for me, that really lifts me up. Um, I've also been listening to Westlife a lot lately, and that quite cheers me up. But I know I used to listen to it, and I used to sob through every song because it was slow, and yeah, it just made me sad. But yeah, so try and, even if it's 15 minutes a day, I put on music on the TV, and it might be on YouTube. It's just one of them ones where it's like a log cabin in the Alps, for example,
Yeah,
and
they're
and
gorgeous.
then you kind of have like a bit of kind of calming,
Yeah.
maybe jazz music or something
Yeah,
like that. And
yeah.
I'll repeat and repeat, sit there with my eyes closed and just kind of let time pass by. And, I think even if that's 20 minutes while you're cooking the dinner or something, I think you'll start to notice that is, yeah, that's really, really helpful, just to give yourself that time, just to give yourself a bit of a break and not try to think, oh, I've always got to be my best. I've always got to put on this front for other people. Try not to care too much. And I know this is really hard to say. Try not to care too much about what other people think of you, and just that happiness should come from within you. And yeah, I just say, for busy people who find it difficult, maybe even it's a 15-minute wind down before you go to bed. The kids are in bed, maybe the cats are asleep, for example. You just, yeah, just give yourself some time and be kind to yourself. And life can be peaceful at times.
Thank you, Haz. That absolutely inspiring what you shared.
Really. I hope it helps. I hope it can reach out and provide some kind of comfort to people that need to hear that today. Yeah, I really hope that this can be a positive thing and help some people who are struggling right now, even maybe to find that balance.
Thank you, Haz Childs, for the honesty and the pace of this conversation. If something in this episode stayed with you, don't rush past it. Let it land, just like Haz. And if this conversation touches something familiar for you or someone you love, take a moment with it. You don't need to fix everything today. Sometimes the shift begins by noticing just a little earlier than you did before. Until next time, I'm Kellyjo Coney-Khan, and this is Home, your weekly reset.